Really, guys? I'm just about to do the good afternoon. This is Beholden To Truth. Josh, blah, blah, blah. And Jerome wants to park right in front of me and has to have his subwoofer turned all the way up so the entire gym parking lot will be notified of the fact that he's listening to his favorite music. So that's really helpful for my concentration during this vlog. But anyway, good afternoon and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host here, Joshua, on Memorial Day. So happy Memorial Day, you guys. I hope you're spending the holiday, the long weekend with your family, friends, loved ones, doing some fun activities. I personally celebrated yesterday. My dad, stepmom came over, we hung out, had some delicious ribs, corn on the cob, casseroles, hung out by the pool. You know, it was a great day. I love our summer afternoons, and I really do appreciate the fact that they have stuck with me. You know, they're the only family members that I have left that have not disowned and disassociated with me over my work here on this platform. So despite the fact that they are both boomers in the retirement age of their life and disagree with basically everything I say, that doesn't stop them from spending quality time with me and still loving me and being graceful. So that's a very, very important thing to me. To me that shows a very strong characteristic that has been basically just discarded this day and age in terms of highly politicized ideologies and this guy's fucking subwoofer, man. Really? Bro, cut it out. I think that is a huge demonstration of character. Just the old-fashioned, dude, my nose is itching. God. Can I just record a vlog? I got other more important, frustrating things to talk about than Jerome and his subwoofer and my nose itching and all this other crap. Okay? Please. Bro. Come on, man. Okay, I had to go and park on the other side of the parking lot just so I could have some level of concentration in talking to you guys. This is so illustrative of the cultural differences of white people and blacks and Hispanics especially. I remember going through this exchange with a Hispanic follower. He's always talking about pink people. Why do you call yourself white when you're actually pink? One of those guys who thinks that America is built on stolen lands and all this other crap. But I was expressing my grievances about people playing their music loudly in public and how this is just a cultural, racial difference. White people don't do this. You don't see people going into subways, blaring their music in parking lots, sitting at, you know, like a marina with their boat, blaring their music so loudly, the hoo-chavi-cha-cha crap, and ruining the day for everybody. It's like, you're not supposed to impose your taste on other people in public places. That's just a fundamental courtesy that white people understand. There's a time and place to consume the things that you like. It's in your personal space. If you want to listen to it in your car, that's fine, but it shouldn't be at levels such that everybody else around you can hear it outside of your car or outside of your house or wherever else you are. Like, the fact that we have to explain these things to non-white people, it really does just go to show that your civilization looks different, sounds different, feels different. That's okay. If you want to enjoy that culture, go over there and do that. Stay over there and do that. We don't want that here. Anyway, so yesterday I celebrated my Memorial Day with my folks coming over, had some delicious food, some barbecue, hung out outside, and just enjoyed the day. Little man out there getting some extra attention. Little man being Gilbert, my dog. But, you know, I have some venting to do today in the aftermath of that celebration because all was going well and it was still an enjoyable day. And I said before that it's really a demonstration of somebody's character, that they can disagree with you politically, religiously, or whatever, and still want to have a close relationship with you, whether it's a family thing, church thing, friend thing, whatever. And that's who they are. They're good people. They're my family, right? They're the little tiny 2-member family that I have left. And so we talk about politics regularly, and I think they somewhat get a kick out of my more radical opinions. And I've definitely pulled them further right on things like feminism, perhaps Israel being a problem, other issues like abortion, the fact that Christianity has to be the moral framework for our society. You know, neither of them go to church. Neither of them have read the Bible in decades. They're cultural Christians. But despite having pulled them right on a number of things, this is one of the things I want to talk about today. The boomer generation, I'm not going to say they're hopeless, but they're borderline hopeless. They really are. Like, you think you've made progress with them, and then you just push a little bit on the racial issue or the Jewish influence writ large issue, and they just collapse. They just do. I mean, they're like Stockholm Syndrome subjects of minorities and Jews. They will find some way to apologize for and explain away and dismiss these topics as me having a problem for caring about them so much. And I'm just symbolic for anybody who might have a problem with minorities and their growing influence in America, soon to be majority of America, the Jewish capture, not just related to the foreign nation of Israel, but Jewish culture, Jewish preferences, Jewish identity permeating through all of our civil institutions, affecting foundational beliefs like freedom of speech, affecting the identity of the country, such as our demographic and our religious devotion. All of these things are tied directly to Jewish influence. And when you try to just point out some of the measurable, objective things that they can go and confirm themselves, if they actually gave 2 fucks to confirm it, you can talk about AIPAC and the meddling in the political election cycles at the federal level, all the way up to presidential cycles, vice presidents, the entire cabinet in the White House. You can talk about lobbying in Congress, whether it's the Senate or the House. You can talk about gubernatorial campaigns, putting in the governors they prefer. You can talk about mayoral campaigns, district attorneys. It doesn't matter. Like, you can provide all of the evidence in the world that Jewish billionaires, whether domestically or internationally, influence domestic political concerns. And it's all out there. It's all public receipts. You can go to Open Secrets. You can go to AIPAC Tracker. You can just type in AIPAC in Fox News or CNN or Google or wherever else, and it'll tell you that these people give money to politicians and influential people in society so that they will advocate for Jewish causes. And it's not just the foreign nation of Israel that they advocate for. It's also the protection of Jewish people, wanting public discourse to be sculpted in a way that is only pro-Jewish. No talking negatively about the Jewish people, their religion, their nationalistic devotion to a foreign nation over the nation that is hosting them. And then you just start going through the checklist of the social ills that Jewish people have been behind. And you talk about feminism, you have Gloria Steinem. You could talk about abortion, Margaret Sanger. You could talk about forced immigration, Barbara Lerner Specter. The previous head of the Federal Reserve, I forget his name, but he's out there talking about how we just have to accept being a majority non-white country. I mean, they're on the books about this stuff if you actually care to go and verify it. And so yesterday in particular, we got to talking about Social Security, because that's basically the number one thing everybody in the retirement demographic cares about, right? They want, fairly so, they want all the money that they were forced to take out of their paychecks involuntarily. It's not an opt-in program. Well, they've been putting money into the system for 40 years. They'd like to get that money back. Fair enough. We all know that it was a Ponzi scheme from the very beginning. But when you start talking about these entitlements and the fact that of the, I can't remember the budget every year, is it, I don't want to make up my numbers off the top of my head. I have a whole episode about the federal budget, and more than 50% of it, I think it's even close to 75% of it, comes from entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And so these entitlements that everybody feels entitled to receive, they're paid for by tax dollars, right? And when you look at who is actually creating the tax revenue of the country in terms of federal and state income taxes, white people on average pay twice, more than twice, at an individual level, the taxes of blacks and Hispanics. And so it's white people keeping this entire thing even close to afloat. The fact that it hasn't collapsed already is purely due to white people. And so when you start talking about how this is tied to the subject of immigration, it's partly an economic concern that you want your money back out of Social Security, then we should be protecting white people because white people are the only people making any meaningful contributions to the tax revenue. And then there is the national identity issue of how is America going to look like America when it is 25% white? And you have this hodgepodge of Arabs, East Indians, Hispanics, blacks, other Asians, East Asians, and they're all advocating for their respective racial groups and their foreign religions. How is America going to have any kind of coherent structure, any kind of societal fabric that brings us all together? It's just not. It should be so self-evident and obvious that it's not going to work. America will look nothing like it does today. And so I just start doing a little bit of white advocacy with them, and they're just so hypersensitive to the issue, and they just have such reductive arguments about, well, they use the same thing that all the retards say. Well, it's actually white people taking the majority of the welfare. And I just want to blow my brains out. It's like, you guys are supposed to be intelligent. Like, I know you guys had high earning careers, and I know at a biological level you have a high IQ. It's just the propaganda over 40 to 60 years that is installed in them, the talking points that they've heard so many times from whether it's college professors or CNN or NPR radio or wherever else. They've only been given one perspective and one set of talking points as it relates to race. It goes all the way back to the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, judge every individual by the content of their character and not their skin color. In this make-believe world that we live in where everybody is now colorblind, except that black people are still screeching about slavery, Hispanics are still screeching about colonization and appropriating the land and genocide. Arab people are still upset over the fact that we've been bombing the shit out of their countries for 80 years. Jews are still upset about the Holocaust and their millennia of persecution all throughout Europe. So everybody, all these other racial groups have not discarded their racial grievances. Meanwhile, you have whites walking around in complete naivety thinking that everybody else is colorblind, everybody else is equally watching out for each other. They're not all nepotistically passing the ball to each other behind the scenes, advocating for each other and not others. And that's where the boomer generation is. Like, they're just lost. Like, I don't think there's a way to fix their perception of the world. We're just going to have to ride it out. Let them, I don't mean to be crude, but they're just going to have to die off because they have so much wealth that they control so much influence. Their personal beliefs and worldviews, using that pool of resources that they have, are going to continue to be an obstacle on racial issues, foreign policy, religious issues, gender issues. There's just not any way to circumvent them. It's like they're in the way. They also outnumber the younger demographic in terms of voting capacity. And because we live in a democracy, we're going to get the tyranny of the majority, which are Jews are just like Christians, and everybody's colorblind. Nobody cares about race anymore. And women should be just as equal as men in the workplace and in the home and all this other nonsense. Gays should be able to get married so long as they love the other person. I'm like, this is the package of beliefs you get with virtually every boomer. They vastly outnumber the young people. And this is even slower progress because we have a negative birth rate. So it's like these people are so outnumbering us. They have so much more resources than us that it's a very, very frustrating thing to deal with, to try to break through with them. You know, I talked in that vlog a couple vlogs ago about, it's even in my dreams where I'm trying to confront the age clash of Gen Z and some millennials trying to confront their parents about Jewish influence and the changing demographic of the country and how difficult that conversation is. You know, I know because I've been doing it for multiple years and I've made like 5% progress. And I'm grateful that they haven't just disowned me like everybody else has. But to see so little progress in terms of actually affecting their worldview, very frustrating. And part of my venting session today is because I was going over all these various different perspectives, and they got pretty upset over the racial stuff, because the ultimate question is, well, what do we do about this, right? And I said, well, we have to segregate, and that segregation has to be based on freedom of association. People can opt into multiculturalism if they want, but we have to provide protected spaces for whites who don't want to participate in multiculturalism. And their belief is that the only way to get to that point is some kind of, in their own words, Armageddon. That's the level of hypertrophy. I'm over here thinking about bodybuilding. That's the level of hyperbole and fear, this gag reflex of even entertaining the idea of letting white people just have their own space, maybe thinking about race consciously, intentionally, for the purpose of reducing conflict, not creating conflict. They actually think that will be Armageddon, a cataclysmic destruction of our nation, if we were to have an open, honest conversation about, all right, everybody raise your hand. Racial preferences. Would you like to live primarily amongst your own people? Okay, cool. You guys go over there. You guys like multiculturalism? Cool. You guys go over there. We're going to draw borders. Those borders will be protected with military force. We'll have different governmental policies to support both areas. Wow. Not that complicated. It's not going to be fucking Armageddon. That's the, as I said, gag reflex that has been programmed into the boomer generation to just shut the conversation down. The only way you guys can get what you want in terms of protecting white people is going to be mass slaughter, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people dead. Who does this sound like? Who believes, who put forth the narrative that whenever white people stand up and say, we need land that is protected for ourselves, we have an identity that is tied to our ethnicity, we need to protect that? When's the last time that happened? The Holocaust, World War II. And we all know, all associations with that historical event, that situation of white people standing up and saying, this is not a land for all people of the world, okay? It's not a land for all religions of the world. It's ours, and we don't want foreign alien influences messing with it, subverting it, whether it's the economy, the religion, the identity of the nation. We want self-determination. We all have been indoctrinated since kindergarten in our public education system, in the higher education system, in the media, with official guardrails established by the government, that when a nation does that, the only possible outcome that could result in is a mass genocide of 6 million dead Jews. That's it. That's the only direction standing for those priorities can go in. It's just so ludicrous. It's absolutely insane to think that it is an inevitable foregone conclusion that white people wanting to keep their lands their own can only result in the genocide of non-whites. Ironically, the very people who established this narrative, the Jews, are actively committing a genocide right now, doing the same thing, trying to not just draw borders around their own land, but expand their borders to annex other parts of other countries for their racial tribe and their religious tribe. And they're the ones who created the narrative that white people can't do that, while they are currently doing that. While indoctrinating all white people in America that if you were to do that, it's going to result in cataclysmic Armageddon-style death of non-whites, and most worrisome, the persecution of Jews. And so, I have this somewhat heated exchange with the both of them in a healthy way. I'll say it wasn't bad, but they cannot have this conversation without getting really emotionally disturbed. To talk about the difference in races, I started talking about IQ and the fact that the racial groups are obviously biologically different. We see this at the physical level, we see this at the cultural level, and we see this at the intangible biological level. And it's honestly, intangible is probably not the right word, because while IQ may be an abstract concept, it is absolutely observably true in material ways. People who have a higher intelligence do things like innovate technologies. IQ as a metric is measured to establish a number ranking on one's capability toward problem solving. And it can be any given problem. It can be how to feed a nation, how to shelter a nation, how to protect a nation, whatever it may be. The intellectual fabric of a nation, the group average intellectual capacity of the nation, manifests itself in all of those forms. How good of a job are they doing in feeding themselves, protecting themselves, establishing an economy and a government, an education system and technologies? That's what you see so glaringly different in the West versus the global South. And it's not a coincidence that all of the studies on IQ show the exact same split. And so they just don't want to go there because they think it's a matter of superiority and inferiority. And they always conflate that argument. I ran into this immediately when I said, listen, the situation with blacks, Sub-Saharan Africa, they have a 68 average IQ. In Africa, or among African Americans, they have an average 85 IQ. Hispanics have an average 85 IQ. Asians and whites are around 100. Ashkenazi Jews, 100, 105, something like that. And you see the manifestation of that in their different nations. And they immediately conflate what I just said to racial superiority. Oh, I just don't believe that certain races are superior to others. It's like, I didn't say that. Nobody said that. And this is that triggered response that they have intentionally created and indoctrinated the boomer generation with, to say that if you observe racial differences, whether it's the cultures they build or the scientific literature that says they are biologically different in meaningful ways, especially as it relates to IQ, oh, so you're saying that that race is superior to the other. This is intentional. This is political rhetoric. It's social rhetoric. It is meant to shut down the conversation of the fact that the races are different and those differences matter. It is to deny this, and it is to keep delaying. Let the conflict build and build and build. Pretend that there's no differences so that you will allow in more people who are not white into all white European nations, so that the white people become closer and closer to the minority so that they can't defend themselves, so that their resources get drained and reappropriated to supporting the entire non-white world. We're being used, and we're being told that we are awful people who call ourselves superior to others if we don't lay down and let ourselves be used. If we don't intentionally endanger and impoverish ourselves, then we're just saying we're superior to others. So unbelievably frustrating, man. And so I have this, back and forth with them about the race conversation and all the implications of, as soon as you are willing to accept that there are biological differences, then there are major implications to this that we have to talk through that actually explain where a lot of this conflict is coming from. And even if you're not willing to have the genetic conversation, you can look at the different racial groups' understanding of history and how those historical grievances never went away. Even if blacks were equally as intelligent as whites, let's just say that that's currently true. Have they let go of slavery? No, you still see them demanding reparations. You still see them talking about how evil white people and our ancestors are. If you just said Hispanic people, they're obviously just as smart as the white population. Well, has that fixed their grievances about living on stolen land and genociding the indigenous people? Nope. And the same is true with Arabs and their opinions about how the imperialistic empire of the British people have stood up Israel in collaboration with America and destroyed many parts of the Middle East, which is all objectively true. I'm just saying that they have a historical grievance, whether it's legitimate or not. We can have that debate, but that doesn't change the fact that the historical grievance is there. And so if you invite people who hate your ancestors and your extended family and your country to live in your country, hello, do you not understand how that's a problem? And what really pissed me off was I was explaining the declining white majority, that we went in one lifetime from 90% to 58%. In the next 20 years, we'll be the minority. In the next 40 years, we'll be 40%, 30%, 20%. By the time your children or your children's children are walking around in America, we'll be a 25% white country. Okay, I understand that you might be a boomer and you spend literally all of your time based on entertainment and leisure, and you live in a 90% white neighborhood because you have the wealth to do so. And when you're not in your neighborhood, you're on cruise ships and golf courses. And when you're at home, you're sedated by an infinite number of streaming platforms. That's great that you've entirely checked out of your responsibilities to society and have done so for basically your entire life. But I have to inherit this wasteland that you have ignored and neglected and left behind to us. My children are going to be walking around as the minority, living a South African lifestyle. Our children are going to enjoy the fate of the Haitian Revolution, or living in what was previously Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. Like, they just don't know. They don't know. They have no idea what it's like for white people to be a minority in any country and what inevitably happens to them. They have no racial consciousness whatsoever, no historical knowledge whatsoever as to what happens when whites become a minority. They're too busy. They're too busy watching 500, 600 hours of streaming content. They're too busy planning their next vacation. That's why I say, like, the boomer generation, they're just lost. Like, I worked 60 years and it was really stressful. So the last thing I want to do now is anything that remotely stresses me or challenges me to look at the world with a fresh set of eyes. All I want to do is just put an IV of dopamine into my vein and live anesthetized for the rest of my life while civilization collapses, while my children inherit this complete garbage society of hedonism and multiculturalism and feminism. I know I helped usher in all these things and protect all of the ideologies that got us here and celebrated them enthusiastically and tried to give them to you. And it may be true that you figured out that, you know, they're actually all upside down and they're all equally responsible for the devastating results of the backslide of our nation, both religiously and ethnically, for the last 60 years. It may be true that, okay, maybe we were wrong about feminism, maybe we were wrong about gay marriage, maybe we were wrong about all this immigration, maybe we were wrong about, I don't know, fucking everything, the sexual revolution. But I'm gonna go on vacation for the rest of my life. Good luck. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, what are you doing? Do you just have no care whatsoever? And so I meet with my dad again this morning after having that pretty tense conversation yesterday. Look, I mean, we put it to bed. We still sat down after all that politics talk and had a beverage, enjoyed some dinner, had laughs, good time. As I said, we're family. They love me even when they disagree with me, and that's why I love them so much. But I ended up getting breakfast with my dad today and doing some errands, and he wanted to follow up on some of the conversation we had last night. And we talked about some things and talked a little bit about Israel, and he's willing to concede that they're committing a genocide and they're doing it on the American dollar, and it's not good for America's reputation and all that stuff, which is good. That's significant progress. It only took me 3 years of being called anti-Semitic and saying I have some kind of irrational problem. I'm just looking for Jewish connections. Use this analogy of, well, let's just say, hypothetically, you have a problem with blue cars. You think blue cars are the problem. Well, when you go and drive around in society, every time you notice a blue car, you're going to say, there it is. There's so many of them. That's that reductive, it's rhetoric. It is political language that they heard some argument at some time that was formulated for them to not have to deal with confrontational issues. And so we got into another somewhat heated back and forth. And it's like, oh, I have the receipts. I've been studying this stuff for thousands and thousands of hours. There's documented hundreds of hours of me going through all of this stuff in long format with the historical receipts. All of the social ills, who progenited them, who promoted them, where the ideologies came from, the political lobbying, the Central Reserve banking system, all of this stuff. I have all of the receipts, and it's hundreds and hundreds of them. And then you get some stupid analogy about like, well, if you had a problem with blue cars, you would notice blue cars everywhere. And so today we're having this follow-up conversation, and he made a comment that I think just illustrates everything super duper succinctly. This is one of those things where it's coming from the perspective of a father, and so it seems rational to a degree. And I can't fault him for having this perspective purely coming from the lens of a father. But at the same time, it's like, who is a father supposed to be? What values are they supposed to be instilling in their sons? And so he says, after we talk all about the Jews and I explain all of their conflicts of interest and I talk about race realism and the implications of it and how these are obviously the pillars of my platform and that I've actually achieved a pretty significant success in getting the message out there. There's a lot of like-minded people who agree with me, who really appreciate the courage that it takes to go and do this work. His ultimate summary and advice is, I just don't really think that you're helping yourself by doing this work, by spending so much time on it. And he has said this exact same thing for the last 3 years, ever since I created this platform. The very first time he heard me talking about Jews, I got a very angry phone call, literally screaming at me for talking about these issues. And after working on him for 3 years, and even when he concedes that Israel is a problem, and even when he concedes to some degree that immigration is a problem, and that maybe some of the stuff about race is true, but the proposed solutions are only going to lead to Armageddon, so that's why it's not fruitful. What he has told me for the entire 3 years of doing this work is that it doesn't help me. It doesn't serve me being me, not him. It obviously affects my ability to get married, have kids. It puts my professional career at risk, my life saving at risk. He even has selfish concerns that, maybe somebody will go and dox him or go and dox my other family members. And so this emotional tactic of partially using emotional blackmail to say, well, you're also putting your other friends and family in danger if you go do this work because people might come after them. You can't tolerate that. You have to shut that down. Simple way to do that is, let's just say I really, really cared about vegetarianism, or I really cared about environmentalism, and I was out there saying, all you greedy oil companies are the cause of all of our problems. You're going to destroy the planet. You're going to cause human life to disappear from this earth and biological life, all of that. And let's just say, because I was doing that, some crazy political activists heard what I was saying about environmentalism or vegetarianism or whatever, and they went out and attacked that person's family member, or went and attacked some kind of CEO of some company or a politician who stood for those things. This idea of incitement to violence seems to only apply when you talk about Jews and race, right? You can talk about how awful white people are for their history of slavery. You can talk about the Crusades in Christianity and all this, colonization. That's not inciting violence. We shouldn't worry about people being angry towards whites and what they might do to whites when non-white people or non-Christian people go out and do that. That's not inciting violence. I have a whole special about this complete garbage narrative of inciting violence and how it is clearly only applied to white Christian people. Watch that on YouTube if you want to see that whole breakdown. You need to be able to dispel that immediately. But what he says even more revealingly is that I just don't think it's best for you. Like, I don't think you're going to be able to get to your goals of having a family and whatnot if you want to keep doing this work. My immediate response to that is, you don't think I fucking notice? At what point did I say, I'm going to do everything in my life for myself? That's actually not how I live my life. That's actually not what Christianity teaches. And it's just so symbolic and obvious as to the divide between the boomer generation and the younger generation who are having to inherit all of their selfishness and their worldviews that are fully around, I am only ever going to do what is best for myself. I told him, I don't live that way. I do put everything on the line. All the stuff in my future, all the stuff in my present, my reputation, my career, my friend circles, church circles, romantic life. Every penny that I have presently and in the future, it's all always on the line to do this work. Our religion was founded on self-sacrifice and self-denial, on courageously standing for the truth at the risk of martyrdom. That's what Christianity is supposed to teach you. It just blows my mind that people who are purportedly Christian can give the seemingly fatherly, seemingly protective advice of, I just don't know that that's best for you. It's like, I didn't do all this to enrich myself. That's the difference between me and you. I mean, like, it's laughable, but at the same time, it's extremely frustrating. I should be receiving praise from my father and praise from all these other people for saying, look, I'm not willing to take the risk that you do. I really admire your courage, and I really appreciate that you're going out there trying to not let white people become the minority, persecuted, murdered, and so on. All the things that will happen when you are the minority. I appreciate the fact that you go out there and condemn these other religions, specifically the ones who hate Jesus Christ. I appreciate those things. That takes a lot of bravery and courage, and I acknowledge your self-sacrifice as a good thing. And instead, I get the literal complete opposite. Don't you know that you're not being selfish enough? Like, okay, this is not the advice I need. I don't need the discouragement coming from the people closest to me, and it's just flat out the wrong advice. Your advice is how we got here. Your way of living life is why we are here. I don't think Jesus said, hey, everybody, I have come to bring peace amongst everyone, and I really don't want to divide anyone. No, it says the literal opposite. I did not come to bring peace. Rather, I came to bring division. Read your Bible. I know Netflix is more entertaining, and I know being on cruise ships and golf courses is a lot more fun, but read your Bible. Stop getting your worldview from CNN and Tucker Carlson, okay? Stop just recycling what was taught to you 40 fucking years ago in college. Stop with the regurgitation of platitudes from Martin Luther King. Stop with the, oh, America is a melting pot that you don't even know was written by a Jew. So fucking frustrating, man. It's like you just go and shit on the whole nice weekend by telling me that I'm destroying my life and you're not proud of me. In fact, you think I'm doing all of the wrong things. Thanks. Thanks for the support there, fam. And this is not the first time. I actually remember doing a vlog just like this a year and a half ago. It's actually at the end of my documentary, America and Israel, Jesus and Judas. where I was out there on October 21st, 2 weeks after October 7th, saying, hey guys, this is what's going to happen, okay? First and foremost, you need to understand that this was a false flag. This was encouraged, engineered, allowed, orchestrated to happen because it's good for Israel. They're lying about the atrocity propaganda. They have ulterior motives economically with the Ben Gurion Canal. They have religious motives with the second, or I should say the third temple. They have the Greater Israel Project they've been working on for 100 years. They were warned ahead of time by other nations like Egypt. Okay, like I'm giving you guys all the facts. They at that point had already murdered over 10,000 people. They've only done 5x that since then. And at the end of that documentary, back then I had like less than 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I was already shadow banned back then. And I was saying, you know, I'm really worried about having my account shut down for talking about these subjects. And I had already gotten the blowback for talking about the Jews coming from my family, that I was doing harm to other people by talking out loud about things that are objectively true. And I was talking about how I've lost relationships with family members that I just don't have access to anymore. I'm not invited to holidays and stuff like that. And I was venting at the end of that documentary, just going through some of the pains of this work. And I said, you know, it shouldn't be this hard. Around the dinner table, this is happening throughout all of the world right now, in America and everywhere else where Jews live, where the places where they haven't been kicked out of. Families are talking about whether or not military aid should be provided, where should America stand on this, where should we as Christians stand on this. And because the boomer generation was fully indoctrinated by Zionists, they all believe by default that we have to defend all this. And so you, having been white-pilled, Christ-pilled, reminded that there is only one religion, and that is following Jesus Christ. There are no other religions. You knowing all of this and understanding the severity of the situation and understanding the enemy would like to educate your family. I get it. You want to help your friends. You want to help them see the light. I get it. Let me tell you, and this sucks. I hate saying this. As somebody who has lost relationships in my family, not one, not two, plenty of them. As someone who struggles in the professional world now because of this. As someone who struggles in the dating world because of this. When you want to go public, so to speak, or whenever you want to talk about these issues, I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is know that you are risking those things, those relationships, those opportunities. You have to understand that you are risking those things. Hopefully the people you're talking to are open-minded and rational. But the problem is the Jewish-owned media and the Jewish-owned academia who created the entire brain, essentially, of the people you're talking to, their perception of the world and their perception of history, their perception of the Jews. They have been programmed to respond on a hair trigger that anybody who is outspokenly critical of the Jewish race or the Jewish religion, they're demonstrating anti-Semitism. That's the same as being a Nazi. That's the same as thinking the Holocaust was fine. That's the same as wanting Jews to die. That's the level of hyperbole and paranoia that the Jews have, not just having for themselves, they have forced the rest of the world to have. And of course that helps them. That obviously helps them. That's how they get a Holocaust museum in hundreds of countries. And that's how they make it illegal to talk about the Holocaust in Germany and many other countries in Europe. That's how they make it social suicide, to where you can never get a job again. And this is what it is, guys. This is social blackmail. This is financial blackmail, reputational blackmail, coming from one clear group of society. And look, you can tell I get passionate about it and I get frustrated over it because I love my family. These people that won't talk to me anymore, I can't go to their celebrations. I don't get to see them on holidays. They don't invite me to see the kids. So when you're sitting there thinking about, hey, is it worth it to try to talk about these subjects with my family? You need to be asking yourself, do you want to be living the life that I'm living? And I am not the only person this happens to. It happens to everybody that does this. I was saying those things because I was getting the family feedback of, you're destroying your life. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know who you're hurting. You don't know the harm you're causing. You're going to incite violence. You're going to cause a Holocaust. You're going to cause racial riots. Not shit has changed. After working on these people for years, nothing has changed. In terms of like getting them to the most important self-realizations and acknowledgement that this is the path forward. White solidarity, protecting white people is the path forward. Exposing Jewish influence that goes far beyond foreign lobbying from Israel. That is the only path forward for the safe, prosperous America. Okay, that's it. There is no politically correct way to get there. There's no soft language we can use. I'm not even over here throwing out racial slurs and vulgarities, and I'm certainly not calling for violence, and still you get told, yeah, you're just not doing it right. I don't even know the facts. I don't know the history. I would rather just spend the rest of my life consuming entertainment and leisure, but I'm still here to tell you that you're doing wrong, and you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting other people. I don't spend any time researching these things myself, so I'm completely uninformed on these topics, and I know you've invested thousands of hours and put your life savings and everything else at risk, but I'm here to tell you that I really don't like what you're doing. You're hurting yourself. It's like, that's why I needed a venting session today, you guys. It's not very topical in terms of what's on the news wire, but it is just as I said, session to vent, do a little bit of therapeutic talking about these issues, sipping some pre-workout outside of the gym. And of all days, I gotta go do a leg day after this. What did I do wrong to have to go through all of these things and then suffer through a leg day? It's like I always say, try to ask for a little bit of help, and that's exactly what they give me. Got to do it all myself. That's all right. Don't need the family support. Don't need the friends. Don't need any institutional backing. Don't need any religious backing from local churches. Don't need the technological support of algorithms. I will just sit here and scream into the void until enough people hear it to where I get what I want, which is a safe, prosperous home for white people to practice our faith. Non-negotiable. We have to be the unmoving, unwavering shield for that. All of these ad hominems, all of the emotional blackmail, don't you know who you're hurting? Don't you know there's gonna be a Armageddon? Don't you, all this other shit that you get thrown out, all the other shit that gets launched at you from the people closest to you. It's got to shield up. It's ching ching. Nope. We have the shield of the faith, and we have the sword of the word, and we will proceed, one in each hand, slicing down the lies, shielding ourselves from all of the blackmail, manipulation, and we will win. We will win because our mission is righteous. Our mission is morally unimpeachable. This is the exact same thing all other people groups of the world do. None of it is founded in deceit, manipulation, dishonesty. We're not trying to do anything behind closed doors, by the way. We're not meeting in secret. I'm putting out public fucking vlogs. All of my posts on social media, 2,500 of them on Instagram. None of them are behind a hidden paywall. All of my opinions are out there. We don't meet in secret, okay? We're not trying to play 5D Machiavellian chess to manipulate people into agreeing with us, unlike some people. Zero marketing dollars behind this message. I don't need to buy eyeballs. I don't need to buy people's belief in our mission, because the truth speaks louder than everything else. When you're doing God's work and standing for the truth, in my opinion, God provides everything else that you need. The protection, the providence. He provides you the shield and the sword, the breastplate, all of it. We have everything we need, including, this is the hard one, patience, selflessness, courage, the ability to sacrifice. That's the stuff that is just alien, completely alien to the boomer demographic. Whoa, 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 whoa. I might not be able to collect my Social Security. Whoa, 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 whoa. You mean I should give some of my wealth to the younger generation to help them accelerate and try to get things back on track for this nation? Nope, not going to do that. Nope, can't do that. You mean just sit down and listen to them objectively and honestly and maybe take a look at the collection, the entire portfolio of research they've done? Nope, I think I'm just going to trust the History Channel. Oh, okay, good. Nope, I think Steven Spielberg really nailed it when he told us how World War II went down. I think Anne Frank told us everything we need to know about Nazis. It's like fucking A, man. Like, we're dealing with emotional toddlers here. I can't deal with it sometimes. I will deal with it. I will persist. The battle never ends. But sometimes I just got to get on the mic and vent. And today is one of those days. And that's why I love you guys. I know you don't all agree with all of my beliefs, especially my women followers. They don't love the idea of not being able to vote anymore. And, listen, we talk about those things. If you want to actually listen with an open mind, open heart, open ears, I've talked about the woman problem. There's a better path forward when we get women out of the way. They are a stumbling block. I typed a mini essay out to a follower of mine, Christian woman, who agreed that women are not meant to hold authority over men. And I had to provide a little bit extra insight into that and to help her along her way last night. And I have full-length videos talking about that issue. And I also, it's not just a woman problem. I have a full video called The Man Problem too, okay? The lack of courage, the selfishness, the anesthetized men of today who are plugged up to video games and porn and streaming content, who just refuse to adopt responsibility even over themselves, much less their communities, their nation, their people. So, I hammer the women hard, but the men are just as awful. Just as awful. I got problems with everybody, okay? My fellow Christians over here worshiping the fucking Jews. What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, so I got problems with everybody. Fellow Christians, all these minorities, boomers, even the young men, the young women, they're all fucked up. They're all fucked up, man. So, one day at a time. It's a very frustrating life I chose for myself. And, I can see how it looks that way for my dad trying to give me that fatherly advice of, like, I don't think this stuff is good for you. It's not about me, okay? Whoa, what? You mean you're like living a life that is not all about yourself and enriching yourself and making things the best for yourself? Who would do such a thing? Yeah, I know. It's a completely foreign idea to reorient your entire life on courage and self-sacrifice if it comes to it. I've been blessed to be protected and provided for, and I would argue that's because it's a righteous thing to do, and God will provide the providence and protection for the people going out there and standing on truth, and that includes at the societal level. If our nation returns to Him And if our nation returns to acknowledging what is objectively true in this world and seeks to live in alignment to truth about the genders, about the races, about the religions, then we will dramatically decrease the amount of conflict across each of those lines. It's not to say there will be no conflict on the way to getting there. That's inevitable, largely because we have alien forces who don't want us to get there. They want the racial problems to persist, and they want the gender issues to persist, and they absolutely want us to be fighting about our religions too. But the only way to resolve those is to stand on the truth that all of those things do have conflicts of interest. We can't live in naivety and hold our hand over our eyes and say, like, oh, the races aren't behaving differently. That's just racism. So, lots of problems with lots of people. But that's okay. You know, my problems don't come from a place of hatred. My problems come from a place of frustration over unnecessary conflict. That's always been my message. I don't hate anybody. I hate unnecessary conflict. And there are people who are intentionally putting us in a circumstance, the melting pot, which is far more akin to a powder keg, so that we can have more conflict than necessary, because conflict is inevitably destructive over the long term. You can go through stages of conflict so that you can eventually reach a peaceful negotiation, but that's the thing. They're not aiming at peaceful resolution. They're aiming at keeping the conflicts going. Invite in more foreign religions. Invite in more foreigners with hostile opinions about your ancestors and the behaviors of your nation. Invite in more of all these people. Create more division amongst the genders. Create more Marxist slices of society to fight against each other. So, I'm trying to reduce the conflict. It may not seem that way for people who are so indoctrinated with this idea, this false teaching that Christianity is about us all just holding hands together and ignoring reality. That's not actually how it works. I say the serenity prayer every day of my life to try to remind me of what it's going to take to get through this mission. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know what I cannot. Living life each day, one day at a time, one moment at a time, accepting hardships as a pathway to peace, taking this fallen world as Jesus did, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and forever happy with you eternally in the next. There's a lot of key words in that prayer you need to pick up on. Okay, reasonably happy, courage, this fallen world, accepting it as Jesus did, not how I would have it. I would like everybody to be colorblind. I would like race not to matter. I would like everybody's different religions to get along okay. But the fact is, that's not what's in the Bible. That's not what Jesus said would happen when you go out and do this work. And so that's why you have to pray every day for serenity to endure the turbulence of getting through this fallen world, accepting that it is fallen, accepting that the best you can ask for is a reasonable amount of happiness. It's not supposed to be an IV drip of happiness every day. And if you think that, then that's what's going to compel you towards trying to draw in all of these external remedies for fulfillment and happiness, these surrogate activities. Oh, I got to travel the world, and I got to accumulate wealth, and I got to find the next TV series to watch, and I got to go see the newest movie, and I got to get the latest clothes and fashions, got to get the newest car, and so on. No, absolutely not. That's not what we're supposed to be doing to find our fulfillment. So anyways, guys, my phone is overheated 3 times during this vlog, so I'm going to shut it down. I really got to get in the gym, finish this pre-workout, get this freaking leg day over with. Happy Memorial Day to you guys. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Christ is King.
Beholden to Truth. Christ culture. What identity and fitness lifestyle. Red pilling the masses on the front lines against the synagogue of Satan.